Alright, we are back with another video, and today's another JoJo What If, because I got plenty of JoJo What Ifs I want to do right now. Today is a interesting one, and today we are talking about a swap around What If. So today is, what would happen if Giorno and Rikiel swapped places? So Rikiel is the main character of Golden Wind instead, and Giorno just goes on to, you know, he's taking his spot as the side villain in Stone Ocean, I guess. I'm mostly focusing on the Rikiel half because that just sounds more interesting. But how will the story change? How does having Rikiel as our main JoJo affect Goldenwind? And what would it be? Like, how does his stand work against all the villains that Giorno had to fight? And how does it do in the overall story? Well, here's my take, so hopefully you enjoy this what if. So, starting off with Goldenwind, in this alternative timeline, Koichi would be sent to investigate Rikiel and not Giorno. In my opinion, I doubt Rikiel would be doing the scams. Now, it's going to be hard for Rikiel to, I guess, have control of a stand, and not only that, but it wouldn't really work. For this timeline to work, I mean, Rikiel's probably going to have to be aged up since canonically he was like 12, 13 during Goldenwind. He would have been way too young, so we might have to age Rikiel up to become probably like 15, 14, 16, around that age, so he could at least fit better to take Giorno's role. I just don't see a 12-year-old protagonist really working in Goldenwind. Uh, in this hypothetical timeline, I do assume Rikiel and Koichi do have some kind of encounter, and Rikiel would likely would find a way to escape with his rods. Maybe not really knowing how to control them, but he would be able to prevent Koichi from getting close to him and trying to get his identity. So Rikiel would run away. He meets Rikiel Luca, and Rikiel Luca would probably be angry at Rikiel for something. I don't know what he's angry about, but we'll say maybe Rikiel walks in on some kind of drug trade or something. Rikiel is nervous, and obviously Sky High acts up, and before he could get smashed with the shovel, Sky High's rods kills Rikiel Luca, kind of like how Giorno was able to kill Luca with the frog pain reflection thing. After this, Rikiel runs away. He probably meets Koichi again, runs away, and then meets Bruno. I do feel like Bruno would be able to figure out Rikiel's lying a lot sooner due to Rikiel being an anxious, nervous wreck, and Bruno would probably be able to piece two and two together. In this timeline, Bruno probably just destroys Rikiel. Now it's hard to say if Bruno would outright kill. I doubt he would kill Rikiel because if Rikiel admitted that he did it on accident, I'm pretty sure Bruno would just, you know, probably just leave Rikiel. But in this hypothetical timeline, maybe Rikiel is just desperate and just wants Bruno to help him. That, or maybe Bruno sees potential in Sky High during their fight. Like maybe Rikiel's able to get some good hits on him, but he's just not enough to beat Bruno. Bruno's just got the experience and all of that, and he's just able to defeat Rikiel. What comes next? Well, in my honest opinion, I don't think much would change in the beginning. When it comes to how I think Rikiel would interact with the group in this timeline, I think he would probably get along with Mista the most. Probably, nah, not really. It'd probably be Mista he gets along with the most in this timeline. Um, he might. I think Abakio might like Rikiel a bit more, but he might find him more annoying than Giorno because of the anxiety attacks. Fugo would be a weird one. I think they might have a mutual respect for one another, but that's about it. And Narantia might just find Rikiel to be too scared, and Narantia might try to encourage Rikiel to try to get out of his comfort zone, knowing him. So that's probably how I think Rikiel's relationship with Team Bucciarati would be. I think him and Misa would probably have the best relationship, but at the same time, I do think Rikiel would probably be at least somewhat of a nervous wreck in this timeline. So we would be anxious to be around all these people. So regarding the rest of Golden Wind, the first fight would be Soft Machine, and I don't really see too much changing here, since this fight mostly focused on Bruno and Abakio. So I do think Rikiel would probably just end up getting taken away, probably really early on, so Abakio would just have to use Moody Blues to figure out where everyone is, and obviously they still beat Soft Machine as they canonically did. It would be a lot harder without the fly, so maybe Rikiel leaves one of his rods behind to help them guide where it is instead. I have no clue, but that's just maybe a scenario I could think of. Rikiel can maybe use one of his rods to help Bruno and Abakio figure out where Soft Machine is, and that's probably the only way I could see that realistically working. After Soft Machine is Kraftwerk, and that fight goes the same. So we still just get Mista versus Kraftwerk the same. It'd be a lot harder to get across the ocean to get to the island they were supposed to fight him at because they needed Giorno to turn a thing into a fish. Or I don't remember what he had to turn to a fish, but he did turn something into a fish so Mista and him could swim across. In this timeline, I think Rikiel would have to find something creative with his rods and would have to get him and Mista across to assassinate Saleh. That or Rikiel could go in alone, which could be a good way to try to improve Rikiel's character arc, but I don't really know what to say there. Of course, we obviously get the fight with Maggio, so that's still Narantia's fight, and that fight's just going to be skipped over. That fight goes the same as it canonically did. The next fight would be Man in the Mirror. Now, this would probably be Rikiel's worst fight because it would be hard for him to control a stand. Because, assuming Rikiel tries to do something like Giorno, where he poisons himself, Rikiel is a dead man. Like, realistically. Like, unless he did something crazy, like, oh, I had Sky High just eat out the rest of the I just had Sky High just swim around my hand and eat out my virus, eat out the purple haze virus before it killed me. Or some weird, illogical, crazy thing like that. Like, if Rikiel did something stupid like that, I don't really buy that with working. Is there a logical way Rikiel can win? I have a few ways. Maybe when Illusio is trying to bring Rikiel into the mirror world, Rikiel can bring in some of his rods and can get some of the rods infected by the virus, and that's what causes him to get affected by the virus, and of course Illusio to escape. This means Purple Haze comes out and just annihilates Illusio as it canonically does, and Fugo can at least respect Rikiel's determination as Rikiel is slowly starting to become more determined. Of course, the Pesky and Prosciutto fight go the same as it canonically does. Mista still dies against Prosciutto, and of course, he's still alive. And of course, Bruno just solos Pesky and Prosciutto on his own. Next is Malone, and this is another fight that Rikiel would have to be a part of, taking Giorno's spot. The question is, how does Rikiel handle Babyface? This one is an interesting fight, and would honestly be really hard. If Babyface is able to target Rikiel right off the bat, like he did with Giorno, this is not a good scenario because he would be shooting out Rikiel's foot, throat, and eye. And shooting out the throat is a likely guaranteed death for someone like Rikiel, since his stand, cannot heal. Now, is there ways Rikiel can get around this? I think for starters, Rikiel would have to use Sky High to service the area and to check around to see in case anyone is near. Once he can sense out Babyface is nearby the wall, Rikiel can attack the wall, and it doesn't mean Babyface just jumps Sky High and Rikiel. Granted, Rikiel might get hurt in the fight, but we'll just say Rikiel is able to at least counteract it, and any wounds he does get are just minor wounds that don't affect him too badly. As for killing Malone himself, I think Rikiel would have to bring his rods into the train station where Malone's at, and afterwards he can just use his rods to kill Malone while he's trying to look for a new mom for Babyface. That sounds so weird. Anyway, going into the next fight, and that is the Gyasha fight. So obviously another Giorno fight. So in this timeline, it would be Rikiel and Mista having to work together. So this would be a very interesting duo. In my honest opinion, as for how Rikiel and Mista would do against a White Album, they probably wouldn't really do the best, because they definitely need a gold experience. Rikiel could be helpful if used as a stand right, like if you remember how Mista was bouncing around bullets with Sex Pistols. If Rikiel is able to help out enough, maybe Mista and Rikiel could work together to overwhelm Gyasha and try to look for his blind spot much earlier. If that's the case, they can just aim for the neck, and Rikiel and Mista get the win. If you remember in his original fight with Jolene and how Rikiel was aiming strictly for Jolene's neck to take away all the heat with Sky High, I think Rikiel could do the exact same thing against Gyasha. So he could aim for that spot and have Mista's help with Sex Pistols to make sure that no ice can get nearby and he could kick away the ice with the bullets. Meanwhile, Rikiel can just use Sky High to make sure to take away the heat. And if he could take away enough heat, it would be interesting. It would probably help out enough so that Mista could shoot down Gyasha and kill him possibly. I don't know, this fight would be a weird one, but I do think Rikiel and Mista would barely win. Worst case scenario is that if Mista still gets shot in the head, he would actually die in this version of the timeline, since there would be realistically no way that Rikiel can actually heal a bullet wound to the head. And of course, we don't get that scene. So, no, Giorno and Mista will not be sharing a golden experience together. Okay. So, next moment would be Bruno versus Diavolo, and this fight would actually change a lot because in this timeline, Bruno would be kind of screwed over and would, you know, end up dead. Yeah, Bruno actually dies in this timeline. Trish would survive barely, only with, her hand cut off. And I assume Bruno would be able to get enough time to help the others in getting Trish out. But in this timeline, Bruno would have died and stayed dead for good in this timeline. Because there's no way no one could heal Bruno. Rikiel has no real ability that can work similar to the healing. So unfortunately, it would mean that Bruno is out of the equation. This would lead to the group still deciding to have to rebel, and this would probably lead to Rikiel having to be the one to try to lead the rebellion, though he would be somewhat of a nervous wreck. I do think that Abakia would come along the boat, of course, and this would lead to, of course, Mista and Narantia coming along. Fugo would stay behind and would probably have more reason to stay behind since his leader, Brucerati, ended up getting killed by Diavolo, so he might honestly just be more of a nervous wreck and just not really trust Diavolo in general. So Fugo stays behind, and this leads to everyone else going out to fight Diavolo. As for the rest of the story, I feel like Clash and Talking Head would just go the same realistically. I could see Rikiel maybe being able to help out in discovering them earlier. So if they're able to take out Clash and Talking Head earlier, maybe there's a chance they win. Notorious B.I.G. is a weird fight for sure. I don't really think too much would honestly change realistically. I could see Rikiel's rods being really useful if Rikiel plays his cards right, but it's honestly kind of hard to say how this would work. Maybe Rikiel's helpful? I don't know. Rikiel, Mista, and Narantia might have to use their long-range stance to try to help overwhelm it. Trish would still have to awaken Spice Girls, and the four of them together could defeat him, possibly, but I don't really know what to say there. The next fight going forward would, of course, be the fight against Risotto and Doppio. Obviously, that fight just goes the same as it canonically does. Narantia is probably sent in this timeline, since there's no Bruno, there's a good chance Narantia might stay behind with Abakia. So it does probably mean that Abakia could just use Moody Blues to look for the identity of Diavolo while Narantia is around. And if that's the case, it's possible that Diavolo may not actually be able to kill Abakia on this timeline. Granted, I could still see Abakia dying because Diavolo just sees him as a threat, that or him dying later on because his stand really wouldn't be useful when it comes to fighting later on. But I could see but I do think Diavolo could kill Abakia in the story. It would just be really hard to. Narantia could still be sent to check out for Risotto though, but it's hard to say. I do still think Risotto dies regardless in this timeline. So unfortunately, we would lose out on Risotto, who still, takes his life with Aerosmith. After this is the fights with Green Day and Oasis, so Chocolate and Secco. When it comes to the Chocolate and Secco fight, Rikiel would obviously go along with Mista to help fight Chocolate, and for Secco, that is really a challenge, and I don't really know how the Secco thing would go. That is a challenge because Bruno is obviously not here in this timeline. So maybe they have to take turns and they decide to go after Chocolate first and save Secco for last. In this timeline, how does Rikiel and Mista deal against Green Day? Well, I don't really see Sky High doing the best in this fight. Maybe it's able to take down the helicopter. If you remember, it was able to take down Jolene and Ermi's helicopter with ease in the cannon. So it's possible he could take down the helicopter Chocolate was on. Though it would be hard since Green Day is very much a mold-based stand that can just melt away at stuff. So it could just melt away at Rikiel's rods and just make Rikiel completely useless. But assuming that it can cause the helicopter to crash, maybe it'd be a lot easier since by that point Chocolate would just be completely on the ground and Beast and Rikiel would probably be able to defeat him much earlier than they originally did. With the rods and with Mista's gun, I could see them maybe being able to beat Chocolate earlier and just having to deal with Secco straight after, which I'm pretty sure would be the case we'll go with. So in this timeline, I do assume that they would barely beat Chocolate and they barely beat Secco. But it would be I think it could be a lot quicker to beat Chocolate in this timeline since Rikiel would just use Sky High to just crash the helicopter. Even if Chocolate survives the helicopter crash, he would still be very injured, so Mista and Rikiel could take good advantage of the injured Chocolate. Meanwhile, against Sekko, it would probably be a little bit tougher, but then again, with their long-range stands, they could probably keep their distance, and I do think eventually they will get to Sekko and kill him. Afterwards, this does lead to the, of course, encounter with Doppio. Doppio would sneak to the Room Coliseum. There's Polnareff, of course, waiting to give him the arrow. Duval still needs Polnareff. Polnareff still gets killed, and of course obtains Chariot Requiem and does the soul swap stuff. So everything like that goes the same as it canonically does. Everyone switches bodies. Rikiel will say switches bodies with Narantia since that's the most accurate to the canon. As for how this would change, it would be, for starters, I still think Narantia dies like in canon, unfortunately, so Narantia would unfortunately still pass away since I don't really see there being a way to rewrite that. As for the rest of Golden Wind, I can't really see too much changing for the final fight, except for like scenes that Gold Experience was very useful, like his healing and stuff. But minus from that, it was mostly just a chase for Chariot Requiem. To be fair, I think Sky High might actually be more useful when it comes to chasing down Chariot Requiem because of his rods. I don't really know if the rods would have much effect on Chariot Requiem, unfortunately, but it would be able to at least help out somewhat. I do think Rikiel's stand is pretty good, and I do think he has a lot of potential with how to use his stand. If Rikiel is smart with his stand, he can simply just take down Chariot Requiem and just take the arrow for himself. Without Bruno, of course you don't have that golden sacrifice, so this could actually mean that in this timeline, Trish would end up dying. Trish dying to Diavolo would definitely encourage the group even more, but I could see Rikiel's rods being the thing that destroys Chariot Requiem at the end, because his rods would just be really quick at that. If Rikiel doesn't act out fast enough, I could see Trish actually dying in this timeline, so we might actually lose out on Trish in this timeline. As for how the rest of the story goes, Rikiel could just use the rods to deliver the arrow to him, and he could gain Sky High Requiem. I don't really have an ability for how Sky High Requiem could work. It likely would have some kind of ability to nullify King Crimson, like how GER does. If you guys have any ideas for a Sky High Requiem, let me know in the comments, but Rikiel would use Sky High Requiem to kill Diavolo, and Rikiel would become the mob boss, with the storyline being about how a young boy who was completely anxious and had nothing but terrible panic attacks was able to become the mob boss of Italy. Basically more of an underdog story than Giorno when you really think about it, and I think that makes a lot more sense, and it kind of makes Rikiel's storyline at least a little more happier than it was in the canon. So yeah, that would realistically be all of Golden Wind. Now let's talk about Stone Ocean, or at least Giorno's fight. So if we're sticking to the original, Giorno is now taking the spot of Rikiel. So obviously everything in Stone Ocean just goes the same as it originally does. Jolene still gets framed for murder. Jolene and Jotaro still fight Pucci. Pucci still takes Jotaro's disc. Jolene and Ermi still work together. They bring FF to the crew. They meet Emporio. Of course, they meet Anasui and Weather Report. FF still dies in the Punishment Ward arc. And Jolene, Ermes, and Emporio escape together, while Anasui and Weather escape together and fight Ungolo. So after the fight with Ungolo, this is where we get the fight with Giorno. So as for how Giorno would do against Jolene, Ermes, and Emporio, this would be only Gold Experience Giorno, so he would only really have the powers that Gold Experience had. So it would just be life-giving and stuff like that. Now, how would Giorno do against Jolene in this timeline? Realistically, when it comes to crashing the helicopter, if you remember, Giorno was able to prevent a helicopter in the Chocolate fight, like I basically stated. Him and Mista were able to work together. While it would be a lot harder in this timeline, maybe Giorno can just use Gold Experience to turn a rock into a tree and to grab onto the helicopter. Giorno can use that time to likely destroy the tree and cause the helicopter to crash straight after, with Jolene, Emporio, and Hermes escaping the helicopter. Next would be the fight itself, and Giorno would probably be a lot more confident than Rikiel was in this timeline, so he would probably not panic to the extent. While I do think Giorno would do better at grasping his power than Rikiel did, I do think Giorno would be able to do a lot better in this timeline, and would probably just use Gold Experience's life-giving powers to help him out a lot. Along with the Pain Reflection, Giorno was just unstoppable in this fight, so it would be really hard to win this fight. As for how Jolene could possibly win, I think she might have to do the setting herself on fire trick to win this fight. But even then, I don't even know if that would be able to help out much. If Jolene still sets herself on fire in this fight to win this timeline, assuming she does still light herself on fire in this timeline, it would probably help out when it comes to, I guess, Giorno's life giving, but even then, it could end up giving her more damage because she's burning stuff that Giorno gave life to already. But then again, we've seen stuff that Giorno's created that has been hurt and no pain reflection really caused, so that ability is kind of weird and it has a lot of loopholes to it. But anyway, Jolene could eventually brute force her way into beating Giorno, and I think with the help of Hermes, maybe they can do it. Now, after Giorno's defeated, he dies. I know a lot of people think Giorno could be redeemed, but let's be honest, with a character like Hermes here, who's just not a nice person, she would just kill Giorno. She killed her kill, she'd probably kill Giorno, unfortunately. Assuming Giorno somehow did turn good, like let's assume Giorno does get punched by Hermes, but then, heals himself with gold experience straight after and just comes back and joins the crew. It's a weird idea, but screw it. What if he does that? Against Donatello, I don't really see Giorno really helping out, and I could see Giorno just more or less staying around to wait until later on. I could see Giorno and Donatello definitely being a fight. How would basic gold experience do against Underworld? I think Giorno would win, depending on what memories are around for Donatello to use, but I do think the fight would be interesting, and I lean more towards Giorno winning, unless Donatello has good memories around him, which he could use those as an advantage with Underworld. Of course, the fight with Weather Report and Pucci still happens, so Pucci would probably still kill Weather Report, and of course Donatello would probably still die, so afterwards, this means Giorno could just go with the others, assuming Giorno's still alive, of course. If Giorno dies, it goes the same as the canon in Stone Ocean. But assuming Giorno turns good, how does the rest of Part 6 go? I don't see much changing for Seamoon, except that I think Hermes wouldn't be knocked out of the timeline. I think she'd probably just die to Seamoon instead, so it gives Hermes at least somewhat of a better death as she did in the canon. The rest of the story probably wouldn't really have much changes. Giorno would probably be able to help out with Jotaro, so it'd be Jotaro, Giorno, Jolene, Anasui, Emporio, and maybe Hermes if she's killed by Seamoon. And Maiden Heaven is still obtained, and I don't really think too much is honestly going to change, and Pucci would probably just blitz through everyone in this timeline. In my opinion, Gold Experience might help out when it comes to giving the group some longevity against Pucci. So, any hits that Jotaro takes or Anasui tanks for the crew, Giorno could use Gold Experience to patch up those wounds to make it so that Anasui could keep absorbing pain, or so the others can still keep on fighting. Unfortunately, I don't see there being a chance for them to literally win in this timeline. I do think they're just going to end up dying, everyone together, including Giorno. Even with Gold Experience and his healing powers, I don't really see there being a way for the group to win, unfortunately. So, Giorno's healing powers, while they are convenient and while they are helpful, I unfortunately don't see there being a way for them to win in this timeline. Pucci still blitzes everyone. Giorno may just be able to help them at least last a bit longer in the fight. Heck, maybe Jolene or maybe some other characters can make it to the new universe thanks to Giorno's life-giving powers. But unfortunately, I don't think too much would change, and I do think Giorno would probably just end up being one of the first taken out by Pucci, since similar to how he did with Jotaro and Anasui, for their stance probably being the most painful to deal with for him, he would probably seek Gold Experience and his healing and life-giving to be the worst to deal with for him. One scenario that I think could help is maybe if Giorno uses life-giving and creates a frog on Jotaro or something, let's say when Jotaro is about to get cut or something, or maybe when Pucci's going to attack Anasui, for Anasui to hold off for enough time so Jotaro can stop time. Maybe Giorno can use life-giving to make it so that maybe one of the weird feet print thing Anasui wears on his outfit. I don't know why Anasui even wears it, but maybe he turns that, and maybe he gives life into that like he did with his weird, like what he does with his ladybug things. Maybe he does it with Anasui's footprints he wears on his outfit and turns that into a tank thing. So when Pucci does donut him, he could just put all the damage onto Pucci. But it wouldn't work because it would have just went back to Jolene, unfortunately. So, yeah. I don't really see that really working too well now I think about it. But, I don't know. Maybe Giorno could do stuff like that. I mean, if he was able to do it with his own clothes, surely he could do it with Anasui, Jotaro, Jolene, Hermes, and Emporio's clothing. I think Giorno can use his stand in a lot of good ways, but unfortunately, in this situation, he's screwed over. So Giorno's probably just gonna end up dead. Unfortunately, I still think the universe reset would happen. Emporia would, of course, still gain access to Weather Report and would still kill Pucci like he originally did, and Pucci would still be killed, and and the others would go on to the Ireneverse. So that's kind of it for Stone Ocean. This is just going with the assumption that Giorno is able to redeem himself, unlike Rikiel, where Giorno is able to at least give some kind of redemption arc. This is the video as a whole. I think it was a very interesting concept, and it was good to talk about my boy Rikiel because I just felt like wanted to talk about him because I like him a lot. If you want, I could do more version of this video. Like if you want to see a version of like Donatello or Ungolo doing it, I definitely could try one of them. I know I have a lot of Donatello fans on my channel, so I'm definitely willing to discuss him in a timeline like that where he replaces Giorno if you're interested. But yeah, this is a very fun what if to honestly discuss and has a lot of potential, honestly. That's honestly all I really have for this video. I think it was a pretty interesting turnout, so hopefully you guys are here for the next video. I will probably be doing another JoJo What If. I don't really have any Danganronpa stuff right now at the moment, so I'm just gonna get some JoJo stuff out first, because I just have a lot of JoJo, whether they be requests or just ideas as a whole that I want to get out. I had this idea for a while in my head, but I didn't know when to let it out. So I decided to just do it now. Might as well pull the trigger and get this video out right away. Maybe this will end up becoming one of my most successful videos. Maybe it'll just be a fail on my channel. Who knows? I just wanted to talk about Rikiel because I like him a lot, and I just thought this was a cool video idea. Hope you guys enjoy. Stay tuned for my next few videos. I'm going to try to upload more consistently, and hopefully I'll get on the YouTube algorithm. And hopefully we all get a good day, and that we're all able to have everything we want come true. I pray for all of us, and we're going to have a good day, and that's all I would like to have. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoy the timeline I made up, and hopefully we're able to make some more videos and get on the YouTube algorithm and eventually get my channel monetized. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.